everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Sirhan and this is my 2021 C8 Corvette. And today I will be changing the dual clutch transmission filter on this Corvette. So let's get right to it. So looking underneath the Corvette, the DCT filter will be located approximately here next to the oil filter. In order to access the DCT filter, you need to remove this plastic panel first. And in order to remove this panel, you'll need a 10mm socket and a 13mm socket to remove the 6 13mm bolts and 11 10mm bolts. So towards the middle, there's these two 10mm bolts, and I think these are used to hang the panel and line it when it comes back to installation. So my advice is just to leave these two just hanging just like that, and then you can slide it over. So like I said, leave those two, because as you can see, I'm finished screwing everything, and in order to remove this panel, you can just slide it over and drop it right down. There's your alternator. Then you can see your exhaust manifolds up there. Okay, these are the two bolts that I mentioned earlier. You want to leave those hanging like that. It'll make it a lot easier to put this thing back on. Alright, so now we can move towards moving this aluminum panel. In order to move this, you're going to need a E16 socket. So this is what it looks like. So it's kind of like an inverted Torx screw. And it looks like there's about 21 screws in total. So you may have noticed a drop of oil on my oil filter. I was really disappointed to see this because the dealership changed the oil, and that was in October. And I literally drove home straight from the dealership after the oil change, and my car has been sitting in my garage ever since. I haven't driven the car. I probably started a couple times over the past 5 months, and that's it. So I shouldn't be seeing a drop of oil like this. This is why I prefer to do maintenance myself and not trust the dealership, because I know I'm going to do it properly. This is why I'm doing the DCT filter myself, just because I don't have trust in the dealership in what they're doing. If I do it myself, I know it's going to be done properly. So this, unfortunately happens. It shouldn't happen like that. To me, is unacceptable. To me, this indicates that the oil filter is loose. So in addition to the E16 bolts, which there are a lot of, you got to remove, looks like these two here. And those look like a 13, so there's 2 of these on each side. And once those are off and all the E16 bolts are off, I think this panel is ready to come down. Alright, so far I've got all the E16 bolts removed, and as you can see, it hooks here on the back. And so all I have to do now is just remove the 2 13mm bolts that are on both sides, unhook it from here, and this thing will come down. So these are the 2 13mm bolts that I mentioned, so 2 on each side. So here's the inside of that aluminum panel. This is where the oil filter would be. I'm glad that this is not oil. This is just dust, so that's a good thing. But I'll definitely clean this up before I put it back on. Okay, so making some good progress. I've got the aluminum panel removed. I've looked around. I haven't seen any leaks. The only thing that really caught my eye, as I mentioned earlier, is this oil filter, which was replaced by the dealership, but obviously they didn't do a good job. And working down towards the rear of the vehicle, about less than a foot away, is the cover for the dual clutch transmission filter. So we're going to go ahead and remove this. Just make a mental note about the orientation. So for me, this symbol that looks like a sun with a 21, that's on the driver's side, and SAE 306 is pointing towards the front of the car. So I'll just make a mental note. I'm going to give you guys a front row view of removing this filter. So it's an 8mm. So if you do buy a DCT filter kit, it does come with new screws. So these, I guess, are one-time use. I just heard that if you try to pry it off with like a screwdriver, like something really sharp, or use some tools, it might damage underneath and you won't get a proper seal. And if that happens, you have to replace the transmission. This is what I've heard. Like, I find that hard to believe, but I'm not going to take any chances. I'm just going to remove this cover entirely by hand. I'm not even using any tools to remove it, just all hand. I don't know, it's just really odd that you got to replace this filter when the car's like still new. I've got all 4 screws out. Now I'm going to go ahead and try to pry this cover off. And sorry guys, it's a little hard with the camera like right in my way, but I want you guys to kind of see what I'm going through here. But I can tell you it's on pretty tight, like you can't pull it out. I guess this is why I guess some people try to use some tools, but I'm just gonna take my time. You would think it's like glued on or something. Like it's, oh, I just felt it move, so that's a good sign. Okay, so it's starting to move a little bit, as you can see. If I just move it around, I might be able to get my finger behind. Alright, so I would say this is probably the hardest part of this job, is just trying to get this bugger of a cover off. I guess you just have to rock it a little bit, move it around. Oops, oh, okay guys, I think I'm almost there. Sorry guys if it's taking a while. It's just, like I said, it's not easy with one hand and with the camera, but I'm very close. I can kind of feel it. I'm going to try to remove the actual filter. It's oh, that was easy. Oh, there we go. Okay, so here is the fluid that just came out. I'd say in total that's about maybe 2 ounces, so it's not a whole lot. And I'm just looking for any metal shavings, and I don't see anything like that, so that's the good news. Like, it looks really clean. I don't see any signs of any wear, so that's the good news. And let's take a look underneath this. That looks really clean too. I don't see any metal shavings, like nothing inside, so that's a good sign. I mean, it's dark, but I think that's kind of normal. I've seen pictures of the filters, like even after 500 miles, and it's, you know, turns a dark color. So I'll compare this with the new one, but I'm just really relieved to see it. Like, I don't see any metal shavings in the fluid, so that's a really good sign. I was surprised just like how clean this was, and so that's a good sign. So this is the bottom of the filter where I used my needle nose pliers to pry it out. And then what you want to do is get a hammer and smash this plastic casing, so that way you can get to the filter. That way you can inspect it a little easier. But I just want to go through it, see if I see anything abnormal, and I don't. It's just oil. It's just oil. That's it. Good news is I don't see anything abnormal. No metal. It's just oil, so that's a good sign. So here's the new filter kit from GM. There's the part number. My local GM dealership was going to charge me $330 Canadian for this. I ended up getting this kit for half, including the shipping, from another dealership from another province, and that included shipping. So for 150 Canadian, I got the new filter. And it comes with the screws, new screws, the new O-ring, which goes on the actual cover. And what's this? There's a yellow O-ring. I'm not quite sure what this is for. I'll have to look into it, but so I have the new O-ring installed. Just going to go ahead and just lubricate it with some fresh oil. And this will be ready to install back on the car. Okay, now I've got my new filter. Let's go ahead and push that in until it kind of seats just like that. There's the cover. New O-ring, which has been lubricated. And remember what I said earlier about putting this on in the right orientation. So if I remember correctly, SAE 306 here was facing the front of the car, and this figure that looks like a sun was facing the driver. So I know this is the right orientation. So go ahead and put that in. So that should hold on its own. Now go ahead and put these screws on. Now when it comes to tightening this back up, I always like to use a cross star pattern in order to avoid potential warping. So I'm just going to start from one end, tighten a little bit, go to the opposite end, tighten a little bit. So the torque for this calls for 53 inch-pounds, which I believe is just under 5 foot-pounds. So don't need a whole lot of torque. Like mine, you know, it came loose relatively pretty easy. I don't want to over tighten. but it's only 5 foot-pounds. Okay, so that's good. I'm happy with that. And the last thing I want to do is just tighten this engine oil filter, because it looked like it was a little loose since there was a drop of oil from when the dealership changed the oil. Okay, I think that's good. And we are done. And now I can go ahead and put this black plastic piece on. Now there's those 2 bolts that I told you to just leave hanging, and that's going to make this step a lot easier. So basically just put them on, slide them over, and that'll just hold it in place. Now we can go ahead and line everything up. Alright guys, so I'm pretty much done. Filter replaced, body panels underneath put back. Now, while I was underneath the car, I actually just noticed something really interesting. I am missing a piece that covers up this portion here. So I've got the rear diffuser here, and between the diffuser and the aluminum panel, there should be another plastic piece right here. Right, so this shouldn't be exposed. Now, a couple of years ago, I know the dealership removed my rear bumper just to replace this lower part because someone rear-ended me and there was a hairline crack in the paint. So they removed the bumper, but they must have forgot to put this piece back in. So I'll ask them about that on Monday. But DCT filter has been changed, and so now the next step will be to add some transmission fluid, so that'll be my next video. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll catch you on the next one.